tenemos Jesse Podell de Startupbootcamp, Mariano Martino de Vaira, Ariel Arrieta, Martín de los Santos, Pascal se ha ido a tomar su avión y no va a estar con nosotros. Y ¿ya estamos?
Creo que sí.
Perfecto, gracias.
Estamos todos. ¿Nos falta alguien? Okay. So we're going to get started. This is the last panel of the day. I'm sure that people want to leave early to avoid traffic, if that is even possible. We have one person that speaks only English, so we're doing in English, as Matteo said. The topic is accelerating startups, specifically in fintech, or with focus on fintech. And we have a panel here that is a mix between a few accelerators, and then we have something that is kind of a hybrid between an operator like Mercado Libre, but you also have a venture fund, and you also participate in the ecosystem as well. So it's going to be a discussion about what can we do as an industry to accelerate this type of startups. I wanted to start with a little bit of a summary of some of the thoughts that came up during the day. We saw some startups, we saw some companies that are doing really innovative things, both as investors and as banks, as Andy said a few minutes ago. And one thing kept coming back all the time, which is this idea that, in general, my view is that in fintech space in Latin America, normally, there are some exceptions, most startups go to the market, go to raise money too early, with something that doesn't look like a minimum viable product. That's my opinion, nothing to do with reality. But I wanted to get your points of view, and especially, Jesse, you have an international view and you have visibility to what's going on in more developed markets. So I'm curious about what kinds of startups are you looking at, and what did you like, what you didn't like about what you saw here?
Absolutely. Thank you for bearing with us. I had Pascal on this panel as well, so I wasn't the only non-Spanish speaker. So, Jesse Podell, Startupbootcamp, New York. I want to answer two of those questions. One is, do people go and try and get funding too early? Absolutely. And two, what kind of startups are we looking at? So I think it's very clear. I probably will find it very hard for anyone in this room to disagree that you should probably go and try and find product market fit before you go and raise money. A little angel money to get started might be useful if you've got young people who don't have necessarily the funds to feed themselves while they're trying to build their product. In terms of what we're looking at, we're financial innovation accelerator. We look globally. What's fun about this and why I took the gig is because 70% of the companies that we accept into our cohorts, and we've done 2 in London, 1 in Singapore, now we're doing a second one in Singapore, 70% come from outside of the host city. So we're looking globally. While the United States has some issues that I think need a lot of help, such as student loans and certainly mortgages and things like that. The accelerator hat that I wear is really about strong teams. It's about people who are builders, who are committed and focused on just this. And if we're talking about accelerating startups, I'm sure this topic will be sort of flowing through. It's about people who are focused and sort of roll with the ball. It means that they just want to learn and open to information, open to learning and doing things. So what is the most, and I'll stop with this, what's most exciting for me, for my accelerator in the United States, where we have our contacts and our network there with the mentors, I would say we usually see about 25 to 30% of applicants doing something on blockchain or distributed ledgers across the board. I'm also very interested in regulatory and compliance. I think there's not enough action there and not enough startups working on that stuff. Frankly, I don't think we need another robo-advisor in the States, but maybe somebody has a flourish on that would be great. But those are some of the topics, but we look at everything.
Mm-hmm.
Regarding the question about if it is too early to launch a product, We have many mantras. One is, if you are not embarrassed of the product that you are launching, probably you took too much time. With that, we want to have a sense of a first feedback from the market, probably not to validate if there is a market fit or not, but at least have a sense of the reality and not having focus groups or early questions with the target. What we are looking for is to have the right points that's coming from the real user, and not something that you are working for months, maybe a year, and you don't have the sense of if the product that you are launching is good or not. And in terms of fundraising, yes, in Latin America it's very hard to raise money compared with other markets, and probably if you have access to raise money, take it, because it will be very hard to find it. But most of the investors need to have some proof of traction to make the investment. And for that, you have to secure the first money that you can find in order to get this traction. And one of the common mistakes from Argentina, from Latin America in general, and especially for Argentina, is companies that are trying to secure a small amount of money and don't try to secure at least 18 or 24 months of revenues, which is the minimum that we'll need to get a little bit of traction. Mm-hmm. And I think that this is our problems here in our ecosystem, and it's different in other markets.
But let me just answer to that, because I'm not trying to picture like a too negative view of this, but one of my concerns when I look at startups in the region versus other markets is that I agree with you that you need to go out to the market as soon as possible, but sometimes it's a missed opportunity, especially within financial services, where I don't want to see a buggy application dealing with my money, or if I'm a bank and I need to, you are selling me that product as a potential client, the same thing. Or if someone goes to Mercado Libre and says, hey, let's try this, and it's not finished, it's kind of scary. And I'm not saying that it's not right to go out. I'm just concerned sometimes, because I saw that I see a lot of really interesting ideas that end up in the middle because they are not able to raise money because the product is not ready enough.
Yeah, there is many strategies. One is try to launch with a different brand for your main brand, and using a small market like Philippines. Mm-hmm. In gaming, you learn that the Philippines users are much cheaper than any in Latin America, and they have similar behavior than the Latin American ones. And you can make this trial not in the real market or your target market, but you can start to learn as soon as you can.
Is that something that you do in your accelerators?
And some of our companies are doing this, especially, like I said, in Philippines.
I wanted to pick it up where Jesse left it. We have a corporate venture fund, so we invest in companies that are developing around the ecosystem of Mercado Libre, and some of them are fintech companies. We're looking at companies that do payments, mobile payments. So we are innovating in-house, but we're also looking for companies that are developing through the APIs on Mercado Libre. And probably the area where we see a lot of innovation going on right now is on financing within Mercado Libre. We have hundreds of thousands of medium and small merchants selling through Mercado Libre, which sell 80% of the volume sold through Mercado Libre, which is about $7 billion a year, is sold by medium and small size businesses that probably are not well served by the banking system. And we also have very useful information on those companies because we see the transactions that they do on a daily basis. And through the API, we are opening that information to financial institutions, fintech companies, and even to banks, that they are able to access that information, get credit information that is very useful, innovative, lend to them, and then eventually through Mercado Pago collect, because For instance, in Brazil, all of the sales of these companies is collected via Mercado Pago. In Argentina, 50% or 60% of the volume is collected via Mercado Pago. And the same thing on the buyer side. Right now, with Mercado Pago, we finance through the credit card system, but we see a big opportunity of financial institutions coming and plugging into our platform and distributing financing products in our platform. So again, one of the questions that was raised before is this is a cooperative or if we're gonna be disintermediating the banking system. I think in the short term we see a cooperation. We think that through Mercado Libre and through the innovation that we are doing and some of the companies that we are investing, we can reach areas of the population, both consumers as well as companies, that are not well served by the banking system today, and offer them financing solutions that are innovative to them.
And are you actively engaged with these two guys, the local accelerators?
Definitely. Yeah, we have a venture fund, like I said. We have about $10 million to invest in companies. So the deal flow comes through them. Some of the companies we invested comes from Wire and NXTP, etc. And we co-invest with the local accelerators here in Argentina, and Brazil, and Mexico. Definitely.
Mariano, do you want to do it in Spanish?
No, that's okay. I mean, if you want, I can speak Spanish badly. I mean, what do we look at in fintech? Basically, I mean, we are Wire and we are the accelerator of Telefónica Group. We are based in 12 countries, and this is doing something bad to me. What we are looking are mainly 3 things. One is Internet of Things, everything that can gather data and be a source of data to be analyzed and help us find innovative ways to decrease risk in finance industry. For us, it's a must. The other thing that we are looking for are pain points in the banking branch system. I mean, everything that connects people with their banks are a pain. I mean, I don't know one single person that is really, really happy with their experience on their bank branch. Not even if you are a Citigold member, not even if you are a JP Morgan private customer, whatever the, yeah, I mean, no, the new bank user, are they here? Yeah, yeah. Oh, no, they are really cool. So sometimes what we are trying to do is find pain points in the industry where we can, I mean, our startups can fit in and be helpful. And the other thing that we do or we look for is ways to enhance credit for people that don't have access to credit. I mean, this is what we can call impact investment.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So getting into what the accelerators can do for startups, fintech startups, I think a few weeks ago in another panel, I heard someone say that if you go to a home banking system of any major global bank, basically every single link that it's there, it's $1 billion opportunity to disrupt. And so one of the biggest challenges that any startup has is focus. How do you choose your product, your market, your strategy? Can you tell us a little bit about how you guys help these startups when they come, hey, I have this idea, and then you start digging and it's not one idea, it's 10 different ideas. How do you kind of like tone them down into like just do just focus on this opportunity?
Well, sorry, let me start with, it was interesting because when we started, I mean, we had a coffee upstairs and I was listening to these entrepreneurs, I think, telling that, well, accelerators and incubators and investors don't know what risk is and they don't help us doing anything and bullshit like all that, right? What I really think is that what a good accelerator can do for entrepreneurs, and I'm not saying that we are the best accelerator, I'm not even saying that we are a good one. What we can do for an entrepreneur is giving them the basics, trying to help them get to the market as fast as possible and trying to get them, in the case of Wire with the Telefónica, I mean, all the Telefónica force behind us is to have access to the B2B community that a single startup doesn't have. So we try to understand the markets and we try to help them when the markets are not easy to grasp for a startup. And the interesting thing is that if you choose the teams that you invest and accelerate according to your own strengths, sorry, what are we talking in English? I hate you. No, I can't. No, don't worry. If we can align our interest, I mean, we can take the best of the startup, the accelerator, and the best return for investors, even when there are some entrepreneurs that say that accelerators and incubators do nothing for them.
Okay.
I think in our case, it comes very natural because the companies that we incubate, or we invest, actually we don't do incubation, we invest in companies and then we select companies that are doing something related to Mercado Libre, very specific to the area. Then we open the door to them, to the different managers within Mercado Libre, so we provide access to them to the platform. And then, I think like Mariano mentioned, we look at teams. So a lot of times we invest in somebody who is very focused, but once they come into Mercado Libre, in contact with the ecosystem, with our team, they pivot their business, and they might end up doing something differently, again, benefiting the ecosystem in general. So we are very disciplined at the time of choosing the companies that they do something that, leverage the ecosystem from Mercado Libre. We look for good teams, and then, we let them do, and if they need to pivot and change their strategy, we help them with that.
I think that us, the accelerators, but also the investors, we don't know what will be good or bad, and we don't know where the innovation coming, or we don't know what company will succeed and what company no. Especially us, because we invest in a bunch of companies to avoid this kind of problem. The thing is, you don't know, and nobody knows, but especially the investors. We think that the entrepreneur have a clear vision of what they think could be an opportunity, and they are building something to capture this opportunity. Our job as an accelerator is try to avoid the common mistake that we saw in all the other startups. And through the experience that we have as an entrepreneurs and also the experience as an investors, we can try to share this experience and try to avoid these things. The new way that we are adding value to the companies are connecting themselves with other companies and to try to not be the bottleneck in the middle, and try to share the information and the experience for other companies, not being us in the middle of this connection. When we make this happen, we are creating a lot of value. And the other value that we can provide is something like it's happening here. We are enablers to connect investors or very old corporations that they don't look at innovation and startups, and they don't have connection, and they don't know what are the potential disruptors of these companies. And we connect them with a small startup, we filter it, we select them, and we are connecting them in events like this to help them to make business, and potentially they can be acquired by big corporations.
But the only issue I have with that is that in specific industries like fintech, and there are a few others, where a lot of the potential value of launching startups is behind the scenes. Like to me, it's like the opportunity of a new entrepreneur coming up with a consumer-facing idea. That's pretty obvious, and they will do a much better job than any of us that have like too many years to realize how millennials will use a mobile app. But when you hear what other banks are doing and where are some of the biggest opportunities, like blockchain and some other more complex things going on behind the curtains of the banks, those are like also multi-billion opportunities that is unlikely that 25-year-old will come up with and come say, hey, I just have this idea. Do you agree or disagree with that?
The idea, yes, the problem is the implementation of the idea, but the opportunity, they can have the opportunity to, probably is, you are not waking up one day and see all the future. You will do this in steps. Then you have an idea, then you achieve a goal, then you realize that that's the goal, is the wrong goal. You have to go in another direction and you build something different, and then at the end of the day, as Steve Jobs said, you see the dots, and the dots are creating a line that they bring us when you are here. And then you can realize that this was a $1 billion opportunity, or you are 2 steps to have this $1 billion opportunity. And I think that you need to have a community that supports that, and these kind of things, and the relationship with the big guys are nurturing this community to allow you to tap these big $1 billion opportunities.
Yeah, it's an interesting thought, right? The way I see it, the best asset that the 4 of us have for early stage, for companies in the early stage, is the individuals themselves, the team. If the tech is sound, and if the tech is that exciting, there's going to, between the 4 of us and our local communities, they're going to find a way to use it, exploit it, and make it into a huge opportunity. Mm-hmm. So for me, it really goes back to your question from the previous question, which is about their focus and ability to pivot. I think that's the best. First of all, we're trusted with enforcing their focus for 3 months, for a virtual period of 6 months, whatever it is. That's the most important thing we have. That's their time, that's their energy. But if they're going to pivot, they're going to hopefully find out quickly. Like, how many companies just went from their original concept to being a unicorn just like that? They pivoted a couple times. So people who are sort of thumbing their nose at accelerators and incubators, they're certainly entitled to do that. And frankly, there are plenty of companies that have done just fine without Y Combinator. However, those aren't the people that are going to really thrive in an incubator or accelerator environment, right? People who aren't necessarily looking to be open, to be getting information and moving very quickly on it. So in summary, I think I don't think the guys at Coinbase or Stripe were really like 25-year-olds who were business geniuses and knew exactly how they were going to shape the industries they were in. They were just young men who were extremely good technicians.
And I think as important as the idea, or even more important, is the execution. So at the end of the day, you can have a great idea, but if you don't have a good team, it's not going to work. And in our region, a lot of the successful companies might not be completely innovative ideas. We have the advantage of seeing what's going on in other parts of the world, but the question is executing. I mean, if you go back to the history of Mercado Libre, when it was started, there were several companies trying to do the same thing. But at the end of the day, the team that executed the best won. And maybe it wasn't such an innovative idea at that point, because it was eBay. But they were successful at adapting the idea locally and then executing it. Mm-hmm. So I think it's execution and the ability to adapt to changes and to pivot if you need to make a change at the right time is a lot more important than having, coming up with a brilliant idea, which is always helpful to begin with.
Yeah. Ariel, I wanted to ask you a little bit about NXTP's experience with this 2-month cycle of fintech-specific acceleration program. Do you think it's good to have multiple companies within the same space at the same time collaborating? Is that something you're going to repeat it? And then for the rest of the panel, is that something that you would consider to focus on one specific industry?
I think that advantage to be focused on one specific market was the focus our relationship with a specific industry. And this was session number 8 or 9th, I think. All the rest of the time that we have the general acceleration program and we choose company from all different opportunities, we didn't develop the relationship with financial institutions that we have in our product. We always invite them to come to our demo days, to mentor days, all the sessions. But sometimes one or two coming and we start to have an engagement. I think that from the side for the companies, it was pretty much the same job. What was really different was the relationship with the industry. We really captured the attention of the whole industry. And especially we detect who is in charge of the innovation, who is concerned of the innovation in each corporation. And that was the great taking from us. And definitely we will do more vertical, not only in fintech, also in agritech or health are probably the next verticals that we want to tap.
Okay, Mariano, you said no.
Yeah.
Why?
I mean, no. I mean, the answer, the short answer is no. The long answer is we invested in 600 companies, so we can't focus on one single market. We have maybe we have 5 or 6 different key areas where we focus on every single year. They are changing. Actually, they change every 6 months, and we plan to change that every 3 months. The good thing about having one single vertical is that you have a lot of networking going within the startups. But since we have 600 startups in our portfolio, what we do is sometimes gather together the best ones in fintech or the best ones gathered in agrotech. So instead of creating a special program for them and start looking for companies that are in the fintech or the agrotech, just to name a few, what we try to do is be a little bit less specific on our calls and try to focus on where we can help them go and try to reach their potential. Fintech, it's one of the hot topics today, but we are too big to have one single focus.
Right.
For us, it's our remit. Startupbootcamp, in case you're not familiar, it's the largest accelerator family in Europe. And so every city has an industry vertical. For us, we have corporate sponsors such as Santander and MasterCard, who are also involved with this programming today. And they're highly incentivized to work with the startups so they can sort of get that entrepreneurship. They also own a piece of these companies too. I know that they don't have the loftiest expectations of return, but they still have exposure. So they're going to get very involved. Also, fintech, the reason why I personally chose to run a fintech accelerator is, and I do believe that having the teams working with one another is important. 2 things, community and regulation, right? It's the most highly regulated industry in the United States, and I think it's really helpful to have them learning from each other's pitfalls, so on and so forth. Yeah. On the opposite side, it's about community. These guys have been around a little bit longer than Startupbootcamp FinTech New York, which is just launched, right? But developing that community and the way that the alumni take care of each other is something that I'm very excited about, and it's very meaningful for me. Having that in a specific vertical, I think is going to be very useful to the companies that go through the program.
Okay.
We are, by definition, focused on certain verticals. E-commerce is an important part of investments that we do. Payments, in particular cross-border payments, mobile payments, there's a lot of innovation going on there. And then financing, which are the 3 areas that we focus on. Regionally, in the 3 main countries where we operate, Argentina, Brazil, and Mexico, and we're starting to look at some things in Colombia. But definitely the same thing. I mean, I think the ecosystem that we create we have 12 companies invested by now. I think they cooperate with each other, and it helps really each other to grow. But we are focused on those verticals.
Okay. So we have a few minutes left. I want to see if there's any question from the audience before I do my last. There, just. Do you hear it? How do you interact with banks in the innovation process?
In our side, I mean, Guaira, we have partnerships with different banks. We had already a partnership with Citibank to launch their city challenge. They had this hackathon running in 6 or 5 or 6 cities in Latin America and Miami. We had a partnership with one of the 2 major banks in Spain, and we are running a specific call for fintech in other bank. I mean, the problem, or at least the problem when you start looking at a market like Latin America, where we are, I mean, we are right now in Latin America, the problem is that banks are the only players that know how to play in these highly regulated markets, but are not a single, I mean, we are not a single market. I mean, we are not Latin America as a single market. So in fintech, it's quite useful to have a bank, a large bank, as a partner to understand every single country regulations and problems.
We at Mercado Libre, we work very closely with the banking communities in the different markets where we operate. We process payments through Mercado Pago, roughly $5 billion, based on the banking system solutions. We offer financing through the credit cards. And then in the future, the innovation that we're doing through our platform, by opening our platform to other financial institutions, we see ourselves cooperating with the banks as opposed to disintermediating them. So our vision is to have an open platform where all the banks can come and offer financing to our buyers, you know, the 25 million buyers that we have on Mercado Libre and the 7 million sellers that we have in our platform.
Yeah, thanks for, again, support what we do. And everything that's been discussed here, you know, sort of is why. Another thing that we haven't talked about is the ability to perhaps run a proof of concept or a pilot with the bank, which is the most exciting thing, I assume, for people who are in, and you know, the 3 of us for sure. That's the ultimate reality check for a fintech startup that actually wants to sell institutional. Will you pass the stress test? You know, are you going to be compliant? Can you survive long enough to get through their procurement period, which most can't? Mm-hmm. So it's the ultimate test to see if you're game ready or not for a fintech startup.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. We develop relationship with the banks. They support us in things like this event or the acceleration program. And we are working in having a sidecar fund with matching funds with a financial institution in Argentina that they want to co-invest with us in fintech companies. Probably next year we will announce this. This is
awesome. Okay, I don't think we have more time for a last question. So thank you very much for your time, and Matteo, come up and